You have died before, not once, not twice, but thousands of times. And deep within you, there's a faint memory of it, a whisper carried across lifetimes, echoing in your dreams, in your fears, and in the strange sense of déjà vu you can never quite explain. Ancient civilizations did not see death as an end. To them, it was a passage, a doorway to a veil that the soul would cross again and again. In the temples of Egypt, on the scrolls of India, drawers, and in the secret teachings of the Greeks and Tibetans, there are clues, bold statements that suggest you have lived and died many times before. What you think of as your neo-one life may be nothing more than a single bead on an endless strand of existence. But here lies the mystery. If this is true, why don't you remember? Why were these truths buried in texts so ancient and cryptic that most of humanity forgot them? And what happens when you begin to awaken the memory of your past deaths and the wisdom you once carried? In this journey, we will explore proof hidden in sacred writings, uncover the philosophy of reincarnation woven into the world's oldest traditions, and reveal why this knowledge was protected like a secret flame. We'll move from the myths of forgotten civilizations to the practical ways you can begin to sense your own cycles of return. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just about whether reincarnation is real. It's about why you are here now, at this moment, why your soul has chosen this life, this body, this exact path, and perhaps, most importantly, what remembering your thousands of deaths can teach you about truly living.
The belief that you have lived countless lives is not a fringe idea. It is the heartbeat of the world's oldest spiritual traditions, carved into temple walls, sung in hymns, and whispered by mystics who saw beyond the veil of time. In ancient Egypt, the soul was known as the Ba and the Ka, two aspects of consciousness that survived the body. The Book of Coming Forth by Day, what we now call the Egyptian Book of the Dead, was not merely a guide for the afterlife. It was a map of the soul's repeated journey through death, judgment, and rebirth. Egyptians believed life was a sacred initiation, and death was but another initiation, preparing the soul for yet another return. Across the deserts of Egypt to the forests of India, the Vedic sages spoke openly of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, "As a man casts off worn-out garments and puts on new ones, so the soul discards a worn-out body and takes on a new one." To them, reincarnation wasn't a mystical theory. It was reality itself. The goal was not to deny it, but to transcend it. By achieving moksha, liberation from the cycle, the Greeks too preserved fragments of this truth. Pythagoras, the philosopher-mathematician, claimed to remember his past lives. Plato, in his dialogue Meno, wrote that learning is nothing more than remembering what the soul already knew from previous incarnations. Even the mystery schools of Orphism and Eleusis hinted at reincarnation, teaching that death was not to be feared, but understood as part of a greater rhythm. Further east, Tibetan Buddhism developed one of the most detailed maps of the afterlife in the Bardo Thodol, or Tibetan Book of the Dead. It describes, step by step, the soul's journey after death and how its choices, fears, and awareness shape the next incarnation. Death was seen not as an ending but as a mirror, reflecting back the soul's true state and guiding its rebirth. What unites these traditions is not just the belief in multiple lives, but the insistence that this knowledge was never meant for the masses. It was guarded, coded in symbols, revealed only to initiates prepared to handle its weight. Why? Because to truly grasp that you have died thousands of times before, and will again, requires a radical shift in how you live. It strips away fear, dismantles the illusion of permanence, and demands responsibility for every choice. Knowing you are shaping lifetimes, not just years. Over time, much of this wisdom was forgotten, distorted, or suppressed. When power structures emerged that sought control through fear of death, reincarnation was either hidden in metaphor or erased from official doctrine. But the fragments remain, scattered across civilizations, waiting for those who are ready to remember. Imagine life as a vast library. Each incarnation you've lived is a book on the shelf, filled with experiences, relationships, lessons, and karmic imprints. When you are born into a new body, it is as though a fresh volume is opened. The previous books are not destroyed, they remain intact. But your conscious awareness is narrowed to focus on the current story. This is why most people cannot remember their past lives. The veil of forgetfulness is not a curse, it is a necessity. Ancient mystics taught that memory is not housed in the brain alone, but in the subtle layers of the soul. The Egyptians spoke of the Ach, the immortal essence that carried wisdom from lifetime to lifetime. The Hindus described karmic seeds embedded in the causal body, waiting to ripen when conditions were right. Tibetan masters taught that the mind carries impressions, like wind-shaping dunes from one incarnation to the next. These impressions, habits, fears, talents, and longings bleed into your present life, even if the actual memories remain hidden. Think of a child who sits at a piano for the first time and plays with startling grace, or a young person who feels inexplicably drawn to a language, a culture, or a place they have never known. These are not coincidences. They are echoes of past lives breaking through the veil. Likewise, irrational fears of water, of fire, of enclosed spaces, often traced back to deaths long forgotten, traumas carried silently by the soul. The cycle of rebirth is not random, it is purposeful. The Indian concept of karma is often misunderstood as punishment or reward, but in truth, it is a law of learning. Each action plants a seed. Each lifetime offers soil for those seeds to grow. You may be born into circumstances that challenge you, not because you are cursed, but because your soul is seeking to balance and expand. A cruel ruler in one life may return as a servant in another, not as retribution, but as a chance to understand the full spectrum of existence. This is why many ancient traditions described reincarnation not as a prison, but as a school. Earth is the classroom, and the soul is the eternal student. Each death is a graduation, each rebirth a new course. Some souls repeat lessons until they are fully integrated. Others accelerate, seeking liberation from the cycle altogether. Yet a profound question lingers. If the soul carries this vast library of lives, is it possible to access it? Can you, in this body, awaken the memory of your thousands of deaths and the wisdom they hold? Mystics say yes, but with caution. They taught practices, dream incubation, meditation, ritual journeys that allowed glimpses beyond the veil. But they also warned, remembering too much too soon can overwhelm the psyche. Imagine holding the grief of 100 deaths, the weight of countless mistakes, the longing for faces you once loved, but will never meet again in this life. The veil then is both protection and mercy. Reincarnation is a paradox. On one hand, it is described with poetic certainty by sages and scriptures across time. On the other, it remains invisible to the rational mind, hidden behind a veil that refuses to be lifted completely. This is why so many traditions approach it differently, some embracing it as absolute truth, others rejecting it as illusion. For example, early Christianity once carried echoes of reincarnation. The writings of Origen, one of the Church's early fathers, hinted that the soul existed before birth and might return after death. Yet centuries later, at the Council of Constantinople, such ideas were declared heresy. Why? Because if people knew they had infinite chances, the fear of eternal damnation lost its power. The doctrine of a single life and a single judgment was far easier to use as control. In Buddhism, the cycle of rebirth is accepted, yet the self is considered an illusion. What returns, they say, is not a fixed personality, but a stream of consciousness, like a flame passed from one candle to another. This raises profound questions. If you are reborn, but the you of this life dissolves, who exactly continues? The answer lies in understanding that the soul is both constant and ever-changing, like a river that is always flowing, yet always itself. Even science, in its cautious way, circles around the edges of this mystery. Researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson documented thousands of cases of children who recalled verifiable details from past Lives, names, places, even scars corresponding to deaths they should have no knowledge of. Near-death experiences, too, offer uncanny parallels to the Tibetan Bardo Todol, souls floating above the body, traveling through tunnels of light, meeting guides, reliving choices, then returning with a sharpened sense of purpose. Still, skeptics argue, are these memories imagination, coincidence, or cultural influence? The ancients would smile at such doubt, for they knew the truth could not be trapped in debate. Reincarnation was never meant to be proven to the intellect. It was meant to be remembered by the soul. The myths that survive today often carry this hidden teaching in symbolic form. The phoenix rising from its ashes, Persephone descending into the underworld each winter, and returning each spring. Even the seasons themselves, the endless cycle of death and rebirth, mirror the journey of the soul. Nature whispers the same story if we only know how to listen. And yet there is a warning woven into this knowledge. To become obsessed with past lives can be as dangerous as denying them. Some seekers drown in nostalgia for who they once were, clinging to the idea that they were kings, queens, or mystics of old. But the ancients cautioned, the only life that truly matters is this one. Past lives are not trophies. They are teachers. Their purpose is to illuminate the choices before you now.
It's one thing to hear that you've lived thousands of lives. It's another to feel it, to sense it shaping your present reality. The ancients never shared these teachings simply to satisfy curiosity. They were always meant to be lived, to transform how you move through the world. The first practice is cultivating awareness of your karmic echoes. Begin by noticing your strongest patterns, your recurring fears, compulsions, and emotional triggers. Instead of dismissing them as random quirks, see them as unfinished lessons resurfacing from other lives. When you feel an irrational fear, pause and ask, what memory might this fear be carrying? What is it teaching me now? Simply reframing experiences in this way shifts you into the perspective of the soul, not just the personality. Dreams are another gateway. In nearly every tradition, dreams were seen as the bridge between worlds. Keep a journal by your bed and record your dreams immediately upon waking. Over time, patterns will emerge, symbols, places, faces that feel strangely familiar. These may be fragments of past life memory filtering through the subconscious. If you pay attention, you'll notice some dreams feel more vivid than others, as if you are stepping into a different time entirely. Treat these not as fantasy but as echoes inviting you to remember. Meditation is the most direct tool. The yogic tradition speaks of jnana, yoga, the path of wisdom, where deep states of stillness allow glimpses beyond the veil. Try this simple practice. Sit in silence. Breathe deeply, and with each exhale, imagine peeling back a layer of your identity, your name, your job, your relationships. Keep going until all that remains is pure awareness. In this state, ask inwardly, who was I before this body? Do not force an answer. Over time, images, emotions, or flashes of memory may arise spontaneously. There are also more structured methods, such as past life regression, where guided hypnosis allows access to the subconscious archives of the soul. While powerful, this should be approached with discernment and care, as the veil exists for a reason. Sometimes what you are shown is metaphor, not literal truth. The key is not whether you uncover exact names and dates, but whether the insight helps you live more fully and wisely now. On a more practical level, you can honor your past lives by paying attention to the talents, passions, and instincts that come naturally to you. These are not accidents. If you are drawn to healing, teaching, art, or leadership, chances are you have walked these paths before. Lean into them. They are your soul's signature, carried across incarnations. Finally, practice living as though you will return. If you knew with certainty that your actions today would ripple into your next life, how would you treat others? How would you care for the earth? How would you nurture your body and spirit?
You have died before, not once, not twice, but thousands of times. And though you may not remember each face, each voice, each ending, they live within you, carved into the very fabric of your soul. Every joy you've ever felt, every wound you've carried, every lesson learned, they are not lost. They are the foundation of who you are in this moment. The ancients preserved this truth not to frighten us, but to awaken us. They wanted us to see that life is not a single fragile thread, easily broken. It is a vast tapestry, woven across centuries, each incarnation adding depth, color, and meaning. Death is not the end, it is a turning of the page. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you live as though you are trapped in a single fleeting chance, or as though you are an eternal traveler, here to grow, to evolve, to embody greater wisdom with each return? When you embrace the reality of your many lives, fear loses its grip, choices become sacred, even suffering becomes a teacher, guiding you toward liberation. Perhaps this is why you are listening now, not by accident, but because some deeper part of you is ready to remember, ready to walk more consciously, ready to live this life as though it matters. Because it does. And so I leave you with this question. If you truly knew you had lived and died thousands of times before, how differently would you live today? If this journey stirred something within you, share your thoughts below. And if you are ready to keep exploring the mysteries of existence, join me in the next chapter. We've only just begun to peel back the veil.